Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, the mecca of health and wellness. We're live on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM. We're streaming on 987radio.com. We're up and running on all of our social media pages. It's Friday night, June 13th, and we're ready to go. So I hope you guys have had a good day. I hope you've had a good week. We have, we really have at the Rock. It's been great. We've been. I was thinking earlier. I took care of a person today that's getting pretty much to the end of their life. She's having a harder time each week, but she still comes and gets adjusted. And I've taken care of people who are at the beginning of their life. So we got little ones that are learning how to walk. And I just thought for a second, I thought, what a cool thing that is. What a cool thing to be able to do that every day when you come to work. You got the whole spectrum of humanity. You got young people and old people. You got healthy, super fit people, and you got people that are trying to be healthier. You got women and men and, all the whole thing. You got it all. You got the whole mix. You got rich people and not so rich people. And when I was thinking about that, the two spectrums right there, I thought, man, what a cool thing that is. And what a cool thing that is that we bring it to you on the radio 5 nights a week from 6 to 7. And we talk about health. And we talk about all the things I can think of that have anything to do with health. It's every single thing I could think of, like literally. I pulled out some notes. Tonight we're going to go over my neurology notes. Like I pulled out some old notes. We kind of went over that last night with that article, musculoskeletal injury risk after sports-related concussions. And sometimes I'll talk about it, and we'll go over an article or something like that, and then I'll go home, and then I'll think about the show, and I'll think about what we said, and then I'm like, okay, did I convey to you the information that I was really trying to convey to you? Like, did I? It really is exciting. It's exciting to me, but it may not be that exciting to you. But maybe it's just because I didn't get it all completely to you, right? Because I know if I got it to you, you'd be excited about it too. I just have a feeling about that. It's kind of like when I first started dating Leslie. She didn't want to have anything to do with me. That didn't make any sense to me at all. I tried to explain to her that this makes no sense that you don't like me. Like this is insane. Like there's no way that you're not going to like me. And she just was like, she was having none of it. She did not want to like me. I was not her style. It was not, but I just, in my own brain, I just thought to myself, there's no way. There's no way that she's not going to like me. This doesn't make any sense. She is perfect for me. I am perfect for her. There's no way. And so it took me 4 tries to get her to go out with me. And then it took me 4 or 5 months to run the other guys off. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. But finally, we got it done, and that was 38 years ago, and we're still together. And I think I've been proven completely right on that. Now, I did mess up a few times along the way, but I think my initial thing was completely right. So it's kind of the way I feel about this health and wellness stuff. It's like if you can ever see it the same way that I can see it, I'm certain that it's going to change your life. I'm certain that it's going to make your life better. I'm certain it's going to make your family's life better. I'm certain that your kids will be healthier because of it. And it's just like, I'm 100% certain. So if you haven't gotten there yet, it's my fault. It's my fault that I haven't gotten you there yet. If you haven't gotten there yet, then I'm not going to quit. Because I'm certain that we can get you there. So we saw this article. We talk a lot about, we say sentences like we did last night when we talked about before you have degeneration in your knee, you have something going on in your brain. Before you have a ruptured disc in your low back, you have something going on in your brain. Before we could go through, but it's like before you have acid reflux in your esophagus, you got something going on in your brain. Before it's like I dealt with diverticulitis today. It's like, and you know what? You know what the medical the medical approach now, and I'm not throwing stones at the medical world. It's just surprising to me. The medical approach was Cipro, antibiotic, and some other thing, and I'm like, okay, we got this overgrown bacteria in the gut, and now we're going to just kill all the bacteria in the gut again. Just like Dr. Perlmutter, if you guys ever want to read a neurology opinion on an antibiotic, Dr. Perlmutter, read that. He wrote several different books. He's an MD neurologist. He's like, man, don't take antibiotics if you can help it. Don't take antibiotics if you can help it. So we had to present some Zymex and some things that we could do here in the office that we will use to help people with diverticulitis. Now, let me make sure that I say it right. I don't treat diverticulitis. That's not my scope of practice. I don't treat that at all. I just give the body the things that it needs to be healthy, and healthy bodies don't have diverticulitis. Does that make sense? Like, I can't treat diverticulitis, but I can treat the person who has diverticulitis. And I can treat the person, and I can work on trying to help the person get the nutrients that they need in order for them to be healthy. And then once they get healthy, then that symptom is no longer there. That pathology. Like this is great, man. Thanks for letting me just walk myself right through that, because these are just terms, right? They're just terms. Remember our stress response? We talked about it. We're going to get into all my neurology notes tonight. It's going to be kind of rough, but I think it'll be fun. I'm going to try to make it as fun as we can. And when you see it, you'll be like, I see what he's talking about, right? But remember our stress response? Alarm, adapt, fatigue, sickness, and death. Remember those 5 things? Alarm, adapt, fatigue, sickness, and death. That's the 5 stages of the stress response. So let's just bring this one out here just a little bit. What is going on in the body? Like, I don't even know what the actual technical definition of this word is, but if we were to just look up the word physiology and see what it says, and look at the definition: the biological study of the functions of living organisms and their parts. Physiology is the biological study of the functions of living organisms and their parts. Okay? So when we study all this stuff that's going on inside of our body, we're studying physiology. That's the official definition of it, right? So if we're studying physiology, that's the function of what's going on inside of our body. There's a proper physiology. Okay? What is so in the stress response, we have the alarm, we have an adaptation, so we have adapted physiology. That's what's going on. Our body's adapting to the environment that we're in. That's adapted physiology. So what happens if our body doesn't adapt to the environment that we're in? Like, it gets really hot in this room, I start to sweat. And if I start to sweat, then that's adapted physiology. My body is adapting to the heat that's in this room, and it's trying to get some of the heat out of me so I don't overheat, right? But what if I didn't sweat? What might be a problem for my internal temperature? It might go up with the temperature in this room. Well, if the temperature in this room got to be 108 and 12, 15 degrees, what if I was sitting in a car How about babies that get left in a car by parents because they forget or whatever, leave the child in the car, or leave the dog in the car, right? What happens? The temperature of the car goes up. The baby can't adapt to the environment. What happens to the baby in the car? They die, right? They did not adapt to the physiology. Well, so if we were to look at and we were to say, well, what would be unadapted physiology? And unadapted physiology in medical terms is what they call pathology. And let's just, for fun, since it's Friday night and we're all just sitting around talking about health, let's just look up the official DuckDuckGo definition of pathology: a scientific study of the nature of disease and its causes, processes, development, and consequences. The anatomical or functional manifestation of disease, the departure or deviation from normal condition. A departure or deviation from normal condition. That's pathology. We've deviated from normal. So that's disease, right? That's what it's talking about right here. This is disease. Okay, we could put diverticulitis into that. We could put diverticulitis into that pathway right there. There's an alarm that happened in the gut. The gut tried to adapt to it. It couldn't adapt to it. It couldn't properly adapt and have adapted physiology. So what did it have? It had unadapted physiology, which is what we call pathology. And now we have what they call a diagnosis for it. And if we have a diagnosis for it, we can give it a drug. That's our model. That's the model we're under right there. If I can get you a diagnosis, then I can get you a drug to go along with your diagnosis. That's unadapted physiology. That's pathology. That's how we make money. That's how the pharmaceutical companies make money. They tell you that, look, you got diverticulitis and it scares you, and all you know is that your stomach hurts and your digestive tract hurts, and they cut out your colon and all that sort of thing, right? Well, what if we just help the body adapt to the environment? What if we were to just trace that whole thing back, and we just trace it all the way back to the alarm and adaptation phase? And then we just said, hey, we got this alarm adaptation phase going on. And so why don't we, you don't have to be the most sophisticated person in the world to think about that, right? Like that's not sarcasm. That's not stupidity. That's not ignorance. That's not Pollyannish. That's not, you're not optimistic. Somebody told me this week I was glass half full kind of guy, right? Well, I think I am, but I don't think that's optimistic. I think this is because it's the truth. To me, it's just the truth. It's not, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck or anything like that. You've got diverticulitis. Okay, what does that mean? You've got inflammation of the diverticula. What's the diverticula? It's the lining of your intestinal wall. That's got all these you've seen that little intestinal wall looking thing where you got all these little gaps that are coming out. And what do you have in it? You have itis, diverticulitis, right? So you have inflammation of the diverticula. What caused the inflammation? What is going on in there that inflamed that deal? Well, bad bacteria. Overgrowth. Well, what caused the bad bacteria overgrowth? Well, the food that we fed the bad bacteria. Like if you feed bad bacteria food that they like and called sugar, then what happens to the bad bacteria? They overgrow. And then what happens? They cause all kinds of havoc to go on in your gut. And then what happens? Then you have the unadapted physiology because you can't adapt to an environment that's incongruent with your genome, according to Dr. Chestnut. So you can't adapt to an environment that's incongruent with your DNA. So sugar wasn't even invented, right? So refined carbohydrates wasn't even invented when your DNA was invented. So there's no possible way that you're going to be able to adapt to that. You're gonna have all kinds of trouble adapting, and then you'll end up with pathology. So is it my job over here to deal with this? Absolutely not. I don't deal with pathology. I might in New Mexico if I had a bigger license, but in Texas, the Texas Medical Association makes sure that nobody else handles their business except for them, which is fine with me. I don't want to handle their business anyway. But what I can do is back it up, and back it up. Let's go back over here. There was an alarm that you couldn't adapt to. What was the alarm? The improper environment that you put your gut in. Okay, how do we solve that for you? Well, here we go. It's going to be pretty easy, really. Like it would just get you the right nutrients that you need so that you can feed the good bacteria, starve out the bad bacteria, restore proper um, homeostasis to your microbiome, and your diverticulitis will go away. Did I treat your diverticulitis? Nope. Did I help you get healthier? Yeah, I did. That's what was one of the things. That's just one of the things we dealt with today, and it's so boring because it's the same story. You could just substitute whatever pathology you're dealing with. It doesn't make any difference what unadapted physiology. The body is a self-healing organism. The body has an innate intelligence. It's 100% perfect 100% of the time. Like it's not a mystery. It's like, look, dude, put put your body in the right environment, and boy, it'll express health. Put it in the wrong environment, it'll express a symptom to give you feedback that you're in the wrong environment. It's pretty simple, you know. Reminds me of a statement that just popped in my head. My dad used to say that God was. I was praying one time, and he said something about on a football field. He told me, he said God's usually on the side of the team with the two biggest tackles. Yeah, if you got bigger athletes and better athletes, you're probably going to have more favor. Yeah, that's the truth, right? So anyway, I digress. All right, let's get into it. We're already into it. Let's talk about neurology notes because we were talking about that article last night, and we're talking about concussions. And I just want to make sure that you see what I see, so that you can understand what I'm trying to say and make sure that it makes any sense. Um, and good luck. Good luck if everything that I say makes sense, because I'm hearing a lot of it for the first time myself. Okay, what they did is they just, we went over this last night. We're not going to go completely. Maybe a couple of sentences, but they checked on athletes, young kids, athletes that went back to sports, and did they develop musculoskeletal conditions after their concussions, right? That's what they wanted to know. And the results were very clear. Athletes who had concussions had 2 times greater odds of sustaining musculoskeletal injuries than athletes without concussions. So what does it mean? It means why am I saying this? And why am I talking about it 2 nights in a row? All I'm trying to share with you is that let's just think about why that's the case. Why is it the case that athletes that have had a concussion are 2 times likely to have a musculoskeletal injury, like a knee injury, like tear their ACL? That's what they're talking about. Like an athlete that goes back out into competition after they have the wrong, after they have a concussion, have a 2 times greater chance of tearing their ACL versus the athletes who haven't had a concussion. So why is that? Well, and the reason that I'm saying it and the reason that I'm trying to share it with you is because the brain controls the knee. That's the point I'm trying to make. Your brain is what controls the function of your knee. Why would your knee tear? Why would you tear your ACL? Why would you be 2 times more likely to tear your ACL after you had a concussion What does that have to do with it? What does having a concussion have anything to do with tearing your ACL? And then it's like if you ask that question, you'd be like, okay, wait a minute. What you're telling me that after my brain has an injury, or if my brain quits working properly, then there's a chance that I might develop orthopedic problems in my hip, in my knee, in my foot, in my shoulder. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I was trying to say last night, and I'm still trying to say it. Because your brain's not firing properly. It's like, whoa, hang on a second. I don't want my hip to wear out. I don't want to have a hip replacement. I don't want my knee to wear out. This plantar fasciitis in my foot is killing me. It's like the bottom of my arch is killing me. And it's like, what is the deal with that? Or what's going on with my kids? Like, my kids are not walking properly. Their knees are knocking and their feet are flat, and they're like this. They look horrible. Like, what is going on with my kids? Like, I feel like I'm getting stiff as I'm getting older, and my joints aren't moving properly, and all that sort of thing. Would it matter to think that maybe that our brain is where that starts? So we had that great article last night, and that was the first sentence it said. In addition, athletes with concussions demonstrate a higher incidence of musculoskeletal injuries after return to sport compared with non-concussed. That's dangerous. You put them back out there and their brain's not functioning, they tear up their knee. Further analysis showed that both male and female athletes with concussions were at an increased risk of musculoskeletal compared to the respective same-sex non-concussed controls. So it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female athlete. If you get a concussion, you're more likely to get hurt after the concussion if you don't get your brain fixed before you get out there, right? So I just started thinking about that last night, and I was really yesterday, and I was trying to think, okay, how can where did I learn this? Where did I learn this stuff from? Where are these conversations that we didn't learn it at Roswell High School? We didn't learn it at Eastern New Mexico. I didn't learn it at Texas Tech. I didn't learn it when I was at New Mexico State. I didn't learn it when I came back to Texas Tech. I didn't even learn some of it in chiropractic school. But after 25 years of these conversations and going and talking to lots of these smart people and sitting in these seminars and all this sort of thing, I started learning some of this stuff. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe we could just like, what are some of my notes? Like, if I was to just show you, like, some of my notes right here that I take while I'm sitting in a class. And this is from the functional neurology seminar, module 3 and 4, and it was just like, okay, what are some of these sentences that I learned along the way that I'm trying to share with you? What are some of these sentences that help us both understand what we're talking about with that? So here's just a sentence. Like, right here is a sentence. And because it's like, find the stressor, then layer on top of that with good things. Like, we don't forget things. We just layer on top of it. Okay, and that's that. But I'm not talking about memory at the moment. But the upper brain sets the tone for the body. The upper brain sets the tone for the body. One of the very first things that I had written in one of the very first pages is posture is a reflection of your neurological tone. Posture is a reflection of your neurological tone. If you have bad posture, you have bad neurological tone. If you slouch and your head's forward, or you got all this crazy high shoulder and high hip and all that sort of thing, then it's a reflection of neurological tone. The upper brain sets the tone for the body, like the muscle tone, right? Like, how much you got to have a certain amount of muscle tone in order to sit up straight. You got to have a certain amount of muscle tone to stand up. You've got to have a certain amount of muscle tone to take a step. If you lose the strength in your glutes, you'll have a hard time walking because you can't when you take your foot off the ground to step forward, you got to pick your right foot up and move it forward. Well, when you pick your right foot up, you're balancing on your left foot, like you're standing on one foot. Well, how do you keep yourself stable on one foot while your other foot is off the ground? We no longer have 2 points of contact on the ground. We just have 1 point of contact on the ground when we're taking that right foot forward, right? So what is keeping us that way? Well, our axial tone, our tone around our spine, and the muscles in our glutes. And if we don't have any muscles in our glutes, or we've lost the muscles in our glutes, we'll have a hard time walking. We'll want to walk with wider feet. We'll have a lean forward in all that sort of thing. And what is happening is it's in the brain. It's in the brain first, right? Sitting unloads ankles, knees, and hips, decreases upper brain, causing decreased brain dominance. Sitting unloads the ankles, knees, and hips. That's why I'm always talking about walking, right? That's why I'm always talking about upper brain inhibits flexor muscles. It turns them off. Okay? If I don't turn them off, they're on. If I don't turn them off, they're on. Okay? How do I turn them off? I fire up the upper brain. How do I fire up the upper brain? I load my ankles, knees, and hips. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. You guys stick around with us. We'll keep it going. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. If the statement sitting unloads ankles, knees, and hips, that's true, right? It unloads them. What does loading them mean? It means stand up and put pressure on your foot. If you stand up, you put pressure on your foot. You load the foot. You load the knee. You load the hip. So if you load the foot, knee, and hip, you press on the receptors. And if you press on the receptors, you ramp up the brain. If you unload, then you decrease the brain. It decreases the upper brain. Does that make sense? So we got kids that sit around all day playing video games. They sit around playing video games and they end up with anxiety and depression and ADD and all the rest of that stuff. And everybody blames the video game. And I'm one of those people that doesn't really blame the video game as much as I blame them not being on their feet. We don't really realize that they need to be on. I was talking this week, and when we're on the commercial, I'll share this. I might have already said it, but I was talking at home with Caitlin and Leslie, and talking about when my mom used to cook supper, my brother and I would be in the kitchen with mom while she was cooking supper. And we had one of those little styrofoam basketball goals with the little string nets. You could hook on the door. So we hung it on the door of the pantry. And then we would sit in there and shoot free throws or whatever with that little orange styrofoam ball. Soft foam. Well, it's not styrofoam. It's that soft foam ball. They were super cool back in the day. We weren't going to break anything with them. And we would sit in there and shoot. And one of us would rebound, the other one would shoot, and then we would switch. And we just did that the whole time because Dad wouldn't let us have an Atari. He threatened divorce over that. He said, nope, they're not having an Atari. We didn't have a Nintendo or an Atari or any of that stuff. And at 5 o'clock, there wasn't anything to do. But, I mean, we only had 3 TV channels at my house. We had to go out on the back porch and turn the antenna so that we could get, you couldn't get all 3 of them at the same time. You had to turn the antenna to get the channels. So there wasn't anything to watch. So what were we doing? We were standing on our feet shooting baskets while Mom was cooking supper and talking to Mom, waiting on supper to be ready. We never thought about we should probably help Mom cook supper, but at least we were in the kitchen with her on our feet. We weren't in our room like my kid was in there sitting on his in his chair on his bed with his headphones on playing video games with his friends. Hang on one second. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're just going to pick up where we left off. We're just going through neurology notes, and we're talking about things, and we're talking about this idea of musculoskeletal problems being secondary to brain problems, right? And how do we get there? That's really what I'm trying to share. It's how do we get to that point, right? Older brain is linked to sympathetics, the lower part of the brain. So before we're rolling over and standing up, the brain is very reflexive. That's that we're trying to inhibit those things as we move around, right? Before you had limbs, you had a spine. That's a sentence right there. Before you had limbs, you had a spine. I put it in quotes. I thought, man, I had a spine first. That's really the beginning of embryology. That's the first thing, is that primitive streak. Very early in the stages is a primitive streak, and off that is the spine, and then we grow the body off of the spine. Right? Females have less neurons. Now don't get crazy about this sentence. Females have less neurons, and they fire more side to side, but they have more connections. Males have more neurons, but they fire back to front and front to back. Our frontal lobes and our occipital lobes running front to back are firing more in a male. Our right side and left side is firing more in a female. The right side and left side of the brain is the fight or flight response, or the parasympathetic response. That communication going backward, having a more balanced outlook of things. Men are like seeing and firing. That occipital lobe in the back, the firing to the frontal lobe, that from the front to back. So under chronic stress, the left hippocampus atrophies. Dementia, we don't lose memory. They lose the ability to retrieve it. That's one of the things that we don't want to do, right? We don't want to lose our ability to retrieve it, because that's in the right hemisphere. Memory is in the right hemisphere, and the retrieving it comes when we're trying to remember it. It's the left hemisphere, because we want to say something about it, and that's coming from the left hemisphere. And when we get dementia, then that's what goes on right there, right? Running causes neurogenesis to the hippocampus. When we run, we build the hippocampus. Exercise builds that part of our brain that has all that memory going into it. Lifting weights increases neurons, anaerobic, and running increases connections, aerobic. So it's like now it's like if you kind of stayed with that idea of brain first, then musculoskeletal things, it's like, what are the things that we can do to keep the brain functioning properly? Why do we need to mix up the things that we're doing in our exercise? Because I wanted to make sure as we were going through this tonight, it was like, okay, once we get the connection that it's brain first, then body, not the other way around, or not just body. A lot of us don't even think about body. We just think about brain. No, excuse me, I said that backwards. A lot of us don't think about brain. We think about body. My knee hurts. My hip hurts. Well, I got a guy right now that I'm working on that with degenerative disc at L5, right hip degeneration, right knee degeneration, was scheduled for surgery, decided not to go get surgery, came to do shockwave instead. And we've been working on those areas. And he's told me today, he's like, I'm glad I didn't do surgery and get my knee replaced. I'm getting better. I'm able to move better. This whole thing. But think about the connections right there. The right knee, the right hip, and the low back degeneration. It's like it would make sense that it was up there first. It was up in the brain before it came down into the extremity. Why do we have this abnormal joint mechanics of that hip? What is it that's causing that problem? And so as I was thinking about this, I was like, once we get that connection, then it's like, okay, what can we do? What do we need to make sure that we're doing to our brain? It's like, okay, Jason, I got it. You've convinced me that the brain is first and the body is second. Okay, you've convinced me of that. So what? What do I do about it? And I want to make sure that we get there tonight. So we're headed that way. Let me see I got a couple more of these pages I wanted to read. And then we got an article that we can read. Let me see. Hang on. I got five pages up right here. There we go. See if there was something. Yeah, right down here at the bottom of this page, I thought it was kind of cool on some of this stuff. It was muscle spindles go to hypertonic when in flexion. Yeah. Let me walk us through this one right here. Okay. So, and flexor muscles get trigger points. Flexor muscles get trigger points. Upper motor neuron work the brain. If you got trigger points, we need to work the brain. Okay. Extensor is fascicular strain, can work tissue. So in the trigger points of the flexor muscles, we need to work the brain. In the problem when we have those type of things in the extensor muscles, then we can work the tissue itself, like cupping or some of the things that we're doing with that. And then I read through this. It's like suboccipitals inhibit vestibular system ipsilaterally. Strengthen extensors inhibits the flexors. And it was talking about SCMs and traps. And it was concussions. It was the page on concussions. Let me find it right quick. Let me get rid of this one. And let me find the page on concussions because I think you'll think this is interesting. Yeah, it's that one. It's number 4. All right, hang on. I told you this might be a little rough because I'm trying to go through all these notes. All right, right down here. Axial problems start before appendicular problems. That's one thing. Building up extremity strength before developing axial tone will lead to extreme orthopedic injuries. If we don't get our axial tone developed properly, and we spend all of our time working on our extremity strength, then we're going to end up with causing injuries for ourselves. And we don't think about that. It's like, man, doc, I need to get something to strengthen. I need strengthening exercises. Can you help me strengthen my shoulders? Can you help me strengthen my legs? My legs are really weak. And it's like, well, if you strengthen your shoulders or you strengthen your legs before you strengthen your spine, you're going to put your spine into a compromised position. So we really should do it the other way around. We really should do the adjustments and the walking and the overhead touches and the pursuits and the things, the eye movements and all the things that we do to drive the brain to set the axial spine tone, right? Then strengthen the extremity muscles. But it was talking about right down here, it said traps react first before the SCMs to stabilize in a whiplash. So in a whiplash type situation, which is what a concussion is, to a certain extent, it's that whipping of the head around, right? The traps on the back, the extensors, are going to fire before the flexors, the SCMs, to try to stabilize the head. That's what I have in my notes right there. The traps react first before the SCM to stabilize in whiplash. Decreased frontal inhibition causes SCMs to be tight. So here we go. Reciprocal inhibition. When we've got our biceps firing, our triceps relax. Right? When our triceps fire, our biceps relax. That's called reciprocal inhibition. Same thing in your quads and your hamstrings, right? When your flexor muscles are firing, your extensor muscles are off. Reciprocal inhibition. So, what turns off the flexor muscles? What turns off the SCM muscle? Right? The frontal lobe. The frontal lobe turns off the SCM muscle. Well, if the frontal lobe is not firing properly and it's not ramped up enough, we get tight SCM muscles. And if we get tight SCM muscles, reciprocally, we're inhibiting the traps. So because the brain is not working properly, the flexor muscles are turned on, the extensor muscles are turned off. That's what it's saying right here. Inhibition causes SCM to be tight. This causes traps to react slower, causing increased concussion injury. Because the traps now have to overcome the reciprocal inhibition in order to, it's not saying that you can't fire your tricep while your bicep is being contracted. And especially if it's resting tone, not active tone. I'm not trying to actively flex my bicep. I just have that, and so when I want to fire my tricep, I have to initially overcome the reciprocal inhibition, and then I can fire it. But what I just think this is fascinating when you think about it, because it's like my traps on the back, that big trap muscle right there that comes all the way up to the base of the skull and down to the middle part of the back, that big trap muscle reacts first in a whiplash situation. But if my brain is not proper, then my SCMs are on, which are turning my traps off, and then it's slower to react, so I increase the damage done by the whiplash. Does that make any sense? I hope that makes sense. And I'll maybe I should say it again just to make sure. The frontal lobe turns off the flexor muscles. If the frontal lobe is weak, the flexor muscles are on. If the flexor muscles are on, the extensor muscles are off-ish. And then whenever we get into a whiplash situation, the muscles that's supposed to fire in order to keep us from banging our head around are slower to react because they're being turned off by the flexors, which are being turned on by the low brain. That's a great example of it happened in the brain first. It didn't happen in the body first. It's and you could go through the whole thing. The hamstring, that same thing, that same mechanism, the pec muscle and the infraspinatus or supraspinatus on the back. The muscles that make your arm externally rotate. If you could turn your arm out, those are muscles on the back of your shoulder. Okay? The pec muscle is on the front, and it brings your humerus closer to your chest. That's what push-ups are when you're doing that. So it's bringing that forward. So that's what your pec muscle does. Your pec muscle gets turned off by your brain. If your brain's not firing properly, your pec muscle is on, so your muscle in the back is off and it's weaker. So now you go to reach for a can of beans in the pantry, or you go to reach for a sweater up at the top of something, or you go to reach for something in the barn that's up over here, or I'm going to reach back for something that's in the back of my pickup truck or whatever, and then all of a sudden I tear my rotator cuff in my shoulder. And it's like, oh, man, I tore my rotator cuff. My shoulder hurts. And it's like, I don't know. I did something to my shoulder, right? Well, you did something to your shoulder, but the problem was that you loaded the shoulder when the shoulder was imbalanced because of the neurology that was going on. That's what I'm trying to really get at. Maybe I said it right that time. Maybe that makes a little bit of sense. It's like, yeah, well, I get it now. Like one of my girls came in today, her shoulder was jacked up. Her mom said, "Do you think we ought to get an x-ray?" I was like, "No, we don't need an x-ray. She didn't fall. There's no chance she broke her shoulder. So I don't think her shoulder's broken. It's not functioning properly." And what's going on with it? Well, we start with the brain. We started with the brain. We started with the adjustment. We started firing the brain a little bit. Then we worked on the soft tissue of the shoulder. Then we worked on the muscles that actually control the shoulder blade and how the arm is moving. And I worked on all that. And then she got up and I said, "Okay, now put your arms above your head." And she was like, "Hey, that's better." I was like, "Good job. There we go." We didn't need to take an x-ray of that. We needed to get the shoulder to function properly because we needed to get the neurology of the shoulder to function properly. And then the shoulder function properly. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's look at an article because I want to make sure that once we get to that point and we say, "Okay, I get it. I got to get my brain to function properly. I really need to make sure my brain is working so that my body works." And you can go ahead and say that. Go ahead and understand that if you already have a joint problem, you already had a brain problem. So we need to fix. We need to not fix. That's not the right word. We need to work on the brain while we're working on the joint too, in order to make sure that it doesn't return in the future. If we have any chance of keeping it from returning in the future, we got to make sure that we're working on the brain while we're working on the joint. It's not independent of itself. So I just found, it's like, what can we do with the brain? Well, fuel and activation. We've got to move our body to charge our brain. What is it right now? I got 2 cell phones. I'm at 78 on one cell phone, and our office phone's at 58. Okay? I've got 2 cell phones. They got exactly the same amount of charge last night. Both of them got the same amount of charge last night. I got up they both got unplugged at the same time this morning. And now at 6:51 in the evening, one of them is at 58% and one of them is at 78%. What should I do to these phones to make sure that the battery will work? I don't want the battery to die. I got to charge the battery, right? If I'm going to charge the battery, I'm going to plug it in. So I'm going to take the charger and I'm going to plug it into the phone. And when I plug it into the phone, it's going to say charging, and then it's going to go up. I'm going to charge the phone. I'm going to charge the battery. How do you charge the battery of your brain? If your brain is a battery and it's low, how do you charge it? How do you get your brain to function? Well, let's go back to that first sentence. When we sit down, we unload our feet, knees, and hips, which decreases our brain. So one of the things that we could do to get our brain to charge up, to get our flexor muscles to turn off, to get our extensor muscles to turn on, to get our shoulder to work better, is to get on our feet and walk. Get on our feet and walk. We can be social. You see what I was like? It's like, be social. Get on your feet and walk. Keep your eyes up. Those things that we say to do or that are best for the brain, there's actually a reason that they're the best for the brain. It's like that's what the brain feeds on. That's how you charge up your brain. It's how you get your charger connected to your brain is like firing the brain because it receives 3 trillion bits of information per second. The other thing we've got to do is fuel the brain properly. Got to make sure this, and I just went to Dr. Murphy's notes and just Googled it, sugar in the brain. Give me one of these articles, right? There's a bunch of them. Reducing inflammation through the anti-inflammatory diet. The Pain Practitioner. I have no idea what that is. Volume 15, number 4, the winter of 2005. David Leopold, MD. And he just talks about inflammation. And we're not going to talk about that. We already know that at nauseum, right? But what could we do? What is he going to say that we need to do to make sure that the brain gets all the things that it needs? I mean, the anti-inflammatory diet recommendations made by this author include whole foods are generally better than supplements. I totally agree with that. You eat good foods. Don't worry about your supplements. Okay? The primary focus of eating is whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. Don't necessarily know if I agree with the whole grain part. The fruits and vegetables, yes, I agree with. I also agree with berries more than I agree with than fruits. Don't get caught up in this summertime deal right now where it's like constant fruits all the time, right? You'll get fat going into the winter. Like watch your berries; it'll control your sugar. Okay, but good foods, good whole foods. We want to eat good foods. We want to stay out of boxes. We want to stay out of boxes that are high sugar content things. We want to make sure that we're getting foods. Protein is primarily from eating beans, lentils, fish, and poultry. Protein is from eating anything grass-fed or grass-finished. This is an MD, but we can talk through it. Don't necessarily agree with it. Grass-fed animals, okay? But I'm not disagreeing that fish and poultry are great. Make sure you get wild fish. Wild fish. Let's see. I got a question right quick. Can you explain more why there is some brain function loss with cervical curve loss? Not sure I said that right. Yeah, there's no question. That was actually on one of the my notes right there about cervical curve and firing into the brain and cervical curve. The way it, I think I deleted all my notes to go over that, but whoops, lost it right there. Yeah, there's no question about that. That the cervical curve, a proper cervical curve, is important when firing the brain. And if you lose the curve, what you do is you've got a couple things going on. When you lose the curve, you've got flexion. When you've got flexion, you've got your flexor muscles firing. That means that the brain is low. You also are losing receptors from the neck firing into the brain because the way the joints are actually built, the joints are now not touching properly because of the angles of the bones, and now we're losing some joint input. So basically what's happening is we're losing input into the brain. And it's making the brain weaker, which is making the flexors be stronger, and then that makes the whole muscle and of the neck weaker as well. And then here goes the cascade of problems. So yes, that's a great thing, and thank you for the question. But that's one of the things that we can do is to work on our cervical curve, do our tractioning, so we can eat proper foods. We can make sure that we're getting into this. The oxidative stress caused by inflammation can be nullified by antioxidants, consumed foods or supplements with vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenoids, zinc, copper, selenium, polyphenols. Polyphenols are found in teas, fruits, dark chocolate, vegetables, and legumes. Isoflavones are found in soy, including tempeh, tofu, and miso. I'm not a big fan of soy. Orange fruits and vegetables, tomato, spinach, kale, green teas, dark berries, citrus fruits, tomatoes. Increase omega-3 fatty acid consumptions for fish or flax oils. Don't confuse those, right? Fish oil does not get substituted for flax. You can't substitute flax for fish. It'll cause a prostate problem in men. It's not the same. You got to have your fish oil to get those omega-3s. You can supplement. Probiotics neutralize harmful pro-inflammatory gastrointestinal flora. Probiotics help the good bacteria overcome the bad bacteria, keeps us away from diverticulitis. He's going to say any more than one alcoholic drink per day stimulates inflammation. I'm not a fan of that at all. And so we're just, no high fructose corn syrup found in many processed foods. Some people should not eat nightshades. So the point of me pulling up that article right quick was simply to just show you um, that we need good nutrition. If we're gonna make sure that our brain is functioning, we need good nutrition. We need to eat good foods. We need to eat good, solid, healthy foods, and we need to stay away from. I've got a girl today that I did shockwave on her hands. We worked on her several areas, but she said, "Could you do my thumbs before we leave?" And I said, "Where?" And she said, "Right here in this knuckle on both sides." And I'm like, "Okay, that's systemic. You don't. That's it's like what? Why is it both sides?" You can say, "Well, I hurt my right hand because I was doing something," but you can't say I hurt both hands. And I said, "Are you eating sugar?" And she said, "Well, not very much." And I said, "Well, how much?" She said, "Just a little bit every day." And I was like, "Have you ever taken a birth control pill?" And she was like, "Yes." And I said, "How little was it?" She's like, "One little tiny birth control pill can change your physiology." That's enough sugar to change the physiology to make your thumbs sore. Got to eat well, move well, and think well. And we're out of time, so I hope you have a great weekend. Sorry that was a little disjointed, but maybe it helped. And you guys have a great weekend. Let me know if I can help you. If there's anything I can do to help you guys, please let me know. And thanks for watching the show. And I'll see you next week. I'll see you Monday at 6. Have